Hey guys, what's up? Welcome to the channel. My name is Tony, this is the 15 Minute Gamer, and in today's video I am back in 7 Days to Die. When you're new to this game, it can be a little bit overwhelming when you're setting a new game up, so I thought before I do my new Let's Play, we could go through all the settings and what they mean. So if you're checking this game out for the first time or coming back after a long time like me, you can just get straight into it. Before we start, don't forget, as always, any questions, leave them in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, drop it a like and subscribe for more content. And of course, as always, let's get on with it. All right, we're going to click New Game. Game name does not matter. You can have it set at whatever you want. Game world does matter. Now, the default one, in the way, I wouldn't say you're supposed to play the game, but it's kind of the one that's got all the POIs in, it's all set up right, is Navezgane. So just leave it as that. You do have others by clicking the arrow, so there is some other generated ones by the developers. There's also, if you go to new random world, you can totally advanced generate it and make it as big as you want and make it, and you can have little maps and stuff like that. For a new starter though, I would just recommend you leave it on the default one for Navezgane. Next up, moving across here to the general tab, so these are tabs along here. Region, unless if you're going to play multiplayer, this doesn't really matter. We're going to look at this from a single player point of view. So, I mean, you can put it where you want, but it doesn't really matter. I'll just put it as Europe, as that is where I am. Server visibility, I always leave this to not listed. You could leave it as friends only if you're going to invite some people in later on. However, I would just leave it on not listed. Password and max players, therefore, do not matter. Moving on to difficulty settings, you can start at Scavenger, which is the easiest. You move on to Adventurer. Nomad, Warrior, Survivalist, and Insane being the hardest. So when you're thinking of difficulty settings, each of these provides a buff and a debuff. The higher and harder you go, the more it's sort of buffed towards the AI. So on Insane, for example, the AI gets a damage of 250%, but your damage is only 50%. So that's how you kind of think of difficulty. That's how it all works. The default difficulty here is Adventurer. That gives you a slight buff in being able to hit harder. Nomad gives you no buffs to either, so no one gets a buff or a debuff. I tend to sit on Adventurer, to be fair. But that's how difficulty settings work. You could make a video about how all the different settings, but that's how it works. 24-hour cycle and daylight length, I would leave as they are. Basically, 24-hour cycle is how long an in-game day is going to take in real time. So it'll take 60 minutes to go from day, night to day. Daylight length is how long daylight will be. It always goes dark at 10 o'clock or 2200. So this is more when the sun rises. The reason I would leave it on both is because daytime is when you're going to be doing most of these stuff, so you might as well have the most amount of daylight. However, again, you can change that to what you want. Just to point out, if you hover over anything like that, it'll give you a little tooltip of what each thing means. Moving on to the basic tab, blood moon frequency and blood moon range and blood moon warning we'll talk about kind of as one. So the blood moon is basically, I mean, you could say that's why it's called 7 Days to Die. But in this case here, every 7 days, there'll be a big event in the game world where all the zombies will come and attack here. And it gets a lot more tougher. It's harder. You have to build special bases, horde bases to protect yourself. It goes insane. And you can set that at different times. You can set 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 or totally disabled. I don't know why you would ever disable it. But yeah, you can disable it if you want. I always leave it on 7 days. But again, if you just want a bit more of a slower pace game, maybe put it at 10 days. But you can go all the way up. You can go up to 30 days if you want. Blood moon range is basically how many days after that blood moon could happen. So if you leave it on 7 days and 0, it'll always happen on the 7th day. If you left it on 3, it would be then 7 days plus 3 potentially. So it could go up to 10 days. So it could happen on day 8, day 9, or day 10. I always leave that just as 0 because I like to know when it's happening. Blood moon warning. This is when you're going to get a warning of when the blood moon's coming. So say you left that at, say, 4. So it could be 7 days plus 4. You could then, if you were insane, disable it so you'll get no warning at all when the blood moon's coming. I always leave that on morning. But again, it's up to you how difficult you want to make it to be. Blood moon count. Now, this one is how many zombies per player will spawn during the blood moon. The default's 8. I would recommend at the beginning you leave it there. Maybe 10 if you want to. This isn't how many will spawn, just 8. There won't just be 8. It'll be every time you kill a zombie, another one will kind of spawn until that amount is finished. So it could be 8 times 8 times 8 times 8 times 8 times 8. You know what I mean? So basically, I'll leave it on 8 or 10. Depends how much of a challenge you want. You can go all the way up to 64. But your FPS will drop if you go higher. So just bear that in mind. You can go 64 if you want a massive challenge, but I would leave it as 8. Zombie day speed, zombie night speed, zombie feral speed, and zombie blood moon speed are obviously all to do with different kinds of speeds. You have walk, jog, run, or sprint. Sprint being, nightmare being the fastest, but sprint generally the fastest one you're going to be using, and the fastest one that's set up on here. So that's how fast the zombies are going to be during the day, how fast they are going to be at night. So I find the default settings are all right. If you want a slightly easier go, or just so you want to do a bit more at night, maybe leave zombie night to run. It's up to you. But the default sprint is usually all right, because at nighttime that's your time to sort things out and mine and stuff like that. So you won't really be interacting with too many zombies anyway. Zombie feral sense, you can have off, day, night, or all. What this basically means is they get like a really heightened sense of everything. So if you have it off, they'll generally just be the same all the time. I suppose is the way you can kind of say it. If you go during the day, there'll be more aware during the day. If you put it at night, there'll be way more aware at night because they're already a bit more aware at night. Or if you go all, they'll just be totally feral all the time towards you. If you put it on all, you'll just be literally attacked all the time and they'll come from miles around to get you. I would recommend you leave that off. Moving on down here to persistent profiles, I would just leave that off. XP multiplier. Now, this scales with how much XP you're going to get. So basically, if you went to 300%, you'd get 300% more XP for everything you do. If you want to grind the hell out of the game, you could drop it 25% and earn a 25% of the normal rate. Now, I usually leave mine on 100 to 125. I wouldn't recommend 300 only because, and one thing to make you aware of, if you put it at 300, you will level up super quick, which will make the game harder super quick. So it's just not really worth it. I would just leave it 100, 125, 150 maybe. But yeah, 100 is perfectly fine. Moving on to the advanced tab, you can see quite a lot here. Player block damage. This is how much damage you do to a block as a player. I do tend to put this up a little bit. You can go all the way to 300 again. I tend to put it around about 150. It just means when I'm like collecting resources, like if I'm taking apart cars and hitting stuff, it means it just breaks a little bit quicker. So it takes some of that grind away from me. AI block damage and AI blood moon block damage is how much damage the AI will do to your blocks, for example. So again, you can put that all the way down and up. You can put the 300. I don't know why you would. It would be almost impossible. I just leave that around about 100. But you can, if you want, again, just drop it a little bit if you want to make it a little bit easier on yourself. Loot abundance. This does not affect the quality of the loot. Bear in mind, the quality will always be the same. Just how much of it you're going to get. So you can go all the way up to 200 and all the way down to 25 if you want to grind all the way. Again, I usually leave that between 100 and 150, depending on what sort of mood I'm in. Loot respawn time. So this is if you do a container. So say there's a bag, you loot it. Within 7 days on this setting, it'll be fully back full again. I tend to turn this off only because it sounds a bit silly, but it's not kind of realistic that a bag would refill itself. Plus, once I've been through an area, I want to know that I've been through the area. I don't have to keep going through the same areas again. So I tend to leave that as disabled. Chunk reset time is disabled as default. However, basically, this means if you haven't been in a chunk, it will reset itself after a certain period of time, so everything will just get reset. What that can kind of be handy for is, say you've damaged some buildings or you've ruined something or you've been messing around and just resets everything back. I would just leave that as disabled. It's a lot easier. Drop on death and drop on quit. So basically this is another part of difficulty settings. You can have set nothing, everything, tool belt only, or backpack only. Or if you're mental, delete all. Now, if you die, if you have a set of nothing, when you respawn, you will have everything you had on your character. If you leave it everything, it'll drop your tool belt, which is your hotbar, so 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and 6, and whatever, and everything in your infantry. If you have its tool belt only, it'll drop whatever's on your hotbar. If you have it a backpack only, it'll drop whatever was in your backpack only, and you'll spawn back with just what was ever on your tool belt, or vice versa. Delete all is you die, you lose everything, and you'll start as a total naked person again. I usually have it on either nothing or backpack only. Basically, when you die, if you set any of these other options, so if you select everything or tool belt, there'll be a little blue backpack on the map and you go back there and get your stuff. It's simple as that. Drop on quit. When you quit the game, what happens? So do you drop everything? Tool belt only, backpack only, enemy spawning. Basically, do you want zombies or not? Off or on? I don't know. Again, I don't know why you would have them off, but yeah, you can have them on or off. Again, I would leave them on. Airdrops. Basically, you're playing a flyover and drop a package out of it. You can have it set to every 3 days, 7 days, or disabled, or you can have it every day. The crates will generally be pretty decent. Sometimes they're a bit rubbish. I would also, in this mode, put on mark airdrops as well, so you can see where the airdrops fall, because it's a bit of a pain trying to keep an eye out where they are. I usually set mine to every 3 days, and I set mark airdrops to on. Cheat mode, basically, will you be able to put cheat mode on or off? I leave that as on because I like to use the cameras and stuff like that. Or sometimes the game does break and you lose something happens, some mission or something fails, your game gets locked, then I can just go past it and fix whatever it is. So I usually leave that on. Now, you might think multiplayer would have nothing that would impact you, but there is 2 here. So what you're looking at here is claim dead zone and bedroll dead zone. Now, this puts like sort of an invisible area around your claim or your bedroll where zombies and animals can't spawn. So what I tend to do with this one is I set the claim to 40 and the bedroll to 30. So just set like an invisible area round that where nothing can spawn, and to me that just really helps out because I don't want zombies and stuff spawning in my base. So yeah, I would put that on, but again, you can play with it what you will. And that's all the settings you need. I hope I explained everything. If you have any questions, let me know below, and I hope you enjoyed the game, and I'll catch you all later. Goodbye.